Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's, well, pretty much woven into the fabric of our daily lives. Social media.
Mhm.
Everywhere, we all tap, scroll, post. But we're here to explore some of the less obvious consequences of this constant connectivity. Think about it for a second. When was the last time you went a full day without checking social media?
Oof. It's a tough one for most people, I bet.
Right. It's a question that really highlights just how deeply ingrained it's become.
It really has. And, while the connections and the information right at our fingertips are undeniable benefits, there are definitely some hidden costs associated with this level of integration.
That's exactly what we want to dig into.
Our mission today really is to uncover those less visible impacts, to go beyond the surface level stuff and understand what else is at play.
Exactly. We're going to be digging into a few key areas to hopefully reveal these hidden costs. We'll look at how social media engages with our psychology, sometimes in potentially harmful ways,
Yeah, the psychology part is huge.
and how it might be contributing to the increasing divisions we see in society
Hmm,
and its role in the, let's say, complex world of information and misinformation.
definitely.
So let's get started. How about we first look at how these platforms are actually designed to keep us hooked, the psychology trap, if you will.
Absolutely. That's a great place to start because fundamentally, social media platforms are engineered with user engagement as like the primary goal.
Right.
And they tap into some really basic aspects of our psychology to achieve that.
It's that reward system in our brains, isn't it? The little dopamine hit we get from notifications, likes, shares.
Yo,
It's a similar neurological pathway that gets activated by, I don't know, games of chance or even just eating something tasty.
man.
These platforms have become, well, masters at triggering those feel-good responses.
Precisely. And think about just the simple act of refreshing your feed.
Mm.
It's almost exactly like pulling the lever on a slot machine.
Ah, that's a good analogy.
Sometimes you get a funny video pops up, an interesting update, maybe a little burst of validation from a comment. That unpredictable reward schedule, combined with the anticipation, it creates this really powerful pull to just keep engaging.
And it's the wanting that gets you, right? Not even necessarily the reward itself.
Exactly. Our brains get conditioned to crave that next potential reward, even if the rewards themselves are often, let's be honest, pretty small and fleeting.
And this isn't just like us guessing. There's actual research backing this up. I remember seeing a Harvard study. I don't have the exact numbers, but it found a clear correlation between significant social media use and heightened levels of anxiety and depression, especially among younger people.
Yeah, that definitely tracks. And it leads right into the powerful influence of social comparison.
Oh, yeah.
Social media often showcases this meticulously curated version of people's lives. People tend to share their highlights, their successes, their most flattering moments.
It's like scrolling through everyone else's highlight reel 24/7. And when you're viewing this constant stream of seemingly perfect vacations, perfect relationships, perfect everything,
Mhm.
it's so easy to compare it to your own life, which
Mm.
naturally includes, the boring bits, the struggles. Suddenly your normal can feel, well, inadequate.
Exactly. This constant upward social comparison can really chip away at self-esteem and feed those feelings of inadequacy. And then tied into that, we have FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Ah, FOMO, a classic of the digital age.
It's such a pervasive anxiety now with the constant updates.
Oh, definitely. We've all felt that little pang, haven't we? Seeing posts about parties or events we weren't invited to or didn't even know about,
Right?
it creates this underlying pressure to stay constantly connected just in case something amazing is happening elsewhere that we might miss out on.
And this fear is just amplified by platform features that are specifically designed for continuous engagement, things like infinite scroll
Oh, the infinite scroll. Deadly.
and auto-playing videos.
Mm.
It's not simply a lack of willpower that leads to hours disappearing online. These features create an environment where it's incredibly easy to just fall into a usage trap.
Yeah, you sit down thinking, I'll just check one quick thing, and suddenly, poof, an hour gone.
It happens to the best of us.
It's really a testament to the intentional design aimed at keeping our attention locked in. So, okay, we're seeing these individual psychological costs, but what about the bigger picture, the broader societal impact? Let's maybe delve into how social media helps create these echo chambers.
Right, good transition.
Yeah.
Because beyond the individual psychological effects, there are really significant societal costs tied to how social media algorithms shape our information landscape.
Yeah.
And echo chambers are a key part of that.
This is where those algorithms really flex their muscles, isn't it?
Mhm.
Feeding us content that aligns with what we already believe or
Yeah.
things we've clicked on before. It creates this personalized filter bubble around us.
Totally. Imagine someone who frequently clicks on, say, articles from a specific political viewpoint. The algorithm learns this and will likely start prioritizing showing them more content from similar sources, constantly reinforcing their existing views.
And while on one hand that might feel nice and personalized, like, oh, it knows what I like,
Right, it feels relevant.
the major downside is that it increasingly limits our exposure to different perspectives, to information that might actually challenge our assumptions.
And that is the very essence of an echo chamber. Whether it revolves around politics or niche hobbies, specific diets, even conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Users can become deeply immersed in these online spaces where their own beliefs are constantly validated and voices that disagree are largely filtered out or just absent.
And the societal implications there are pretty considerable. It fuels polarization, doesn't it?
Massively.
When we're mainly exposed only to information that confirms our biases, it becomes increasingly difficult to even understand, let alone empathize with, people who hold different views. It can really feel like we're living in completely separate information ecosystems sometimes.
Absolutely. Just think about how wildly different people's social media feeds might look during, say, a major election cycle.
Oh, totally.
Supporters of one candidate might see a constant barrage of negative stories about the opponent, maybe some scandals, while supporters of the other candidate see the complete reverse. They're consuming vastly different narratives, even when they're talking about the exact same events.
It's almost like they're operating from entirely different sets of facts.
Pretty much.
Oh.
Two separate realities being constructed online.
And this doesn't just stay neatly contained in the digital world, does it? It inevitably bleeds over into our offline interactions, impacting our actual personal relationships.
Exactly. That's a crucial point. We see online disagreements, often fueled by these polarized feeds, leading to genuine real-world social disconnection.
Yeah, like people unfriending family members.
People unfriend or even block family members, longtime friends, colleagues, all because of stuff they posted online. These echo chambers erode our ability to have constructive dialogue, and they can lead to some serious social fragmentation. The online division has very real, very tangible offline consequences.
Which unfortunately brings us smoothly to another critical concern: the incredibly rapid spread of misinformation. Social media has become this unbelievably efficient, though often chaotic engine for pushing out false or misleading information.
Yeah, the velocity is something else. What's particularly noteworthy is just the sheer speed and scale at which misinformation can travel across these platforms.
Compared to traditional media, anyway.
Right. Unlike traditional media outlets that usually have some kind of fact-checking process, however imperfect, the barriers to entry and spreading stuff online are significantly lower. Anyone can post anything, pretty much.
The Pizzagate example is such a chilling illustration of this. A completely baseless, fabricated story just spiraled out of control online and ultimately led to actual real-world danger when someone showed up with a weapon acting on this utterly false narrative.
That incident just starkly underscores the very real harm that online misinformation can inflict. And, often it seems like the emotionally charged or sensational stuff travels much faster and wider than careful, factual, nuanced information.
It almost feels like the more outrageous or less credible something is, the more likely it is to go viral sometimes. A straightforward, boring news report just can't compete with a really captivating, even if totally untrue, story for online attention.
There's definitely a strong psychological element there, too. Emotions like outrage, fear, maybe even just the desire to seem in the know can motivate people to share content without even pausing to check if it's true.
Yeah.
It's really crucial, I think, for all of us to reflect on our own sharing habits. Like, how often have we maybe amplified something without really confirming its accuracy first?
Guilty as charged, probably, at some point. It's so easy to get caught up in the moment, have that emotional reaction to a headline, and just hit share without thinking critically. We've likely all done it. Which then raises this really significant question about the responsibility of the social media platforms themselves in tackling this whole mess.
Exactly, because while they provide the infrastructure, the pipes for communication, they also directly benefit from high levels of user engagement. And sometimes, unfortunately, Controversial or misleading content can be a powerful driver of that engagement.
Yeah.
So it creates this inherent tension, doesn't it, between their role as a neutral platform, which they often claim to be, and their potential responsibility for the information and misinformation being shared and amplified.
It definitely introduces a potential conflict of interest. If their whole business model thrives on keeping users scrolling and clicking and reacting,
Then aggressively cracking down on misinformation might actually inadvertently reduce that engagement and maybe even their profits.
it's tricky. Now, let's maybe shift our focus slightly to another really significant hidden cost: the direct impact of all this on our mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've touched on bits like anxiety and depression linked to the social comparison and FOMO.
Right.
But the effects on mental well-being are really multifaceted and deserve a closer look.
I've heard from therapists I know that social media comes up constantly in their sessions, particularly with younger clients. It's become this pervasive background influence on their emotional landscape.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Key issues like cyberbullying are unfortunately depressingly prevalent on these platforms. The relative anonymity online can sometimes embolden people to say things they'd never say face-to-face.
And the permanence of it, too.
That too. Plus, the intense focus on visual presentation, especially on platforms like Instagram or TikTok, contributes massively to body image pressures.
It's that constant bombardment with often heavily edited, idealized images, right? It creates these totally unrealistic standards and can contribute significantly to body dissatisfaction, lower self-esteem, particularly tough for adolescents who are still figuring things out.
For sure. And then there's the whole phenomenon of doom scrolling, which seems to have really ramped up in recent years.
Oh, doom scrolling. Tell me about it.
That relentless consumption of negative news and stressful information online often lead into the night, just scrolling and scrolling through bad news.
Yeah, you should stop, but you can't.
Exactly. It can create this really vicious cycle that's incredibly detrimental to mental health. It's linked pretty clearly to increased stress levels, major sleep disturbances, and even, as you touched on earlier, symptoms that look a lot like post-traumatic stress in some individuals.
Wow, I remember reading about a young person, I think it was in a news report, whose negative experiences online, the bullying and pressure, were so severe that it totally disrupted their life. They actually had to step away from school for a while.
See, it really highlights the profound impact these seemingly virtual interactions can have on our very real-world well-being and functioning.
It's not just a game.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not limited to younger generations either. We also see plenty of adults increasingly tying their own sense of self-worth to metrics like follower counts or how much engagement their posts get.
Oh, yeah.
The number of likes or comments can, for some people, become this external validation of their value as a person.
I'll be honest, I felt that myself sometimes. You put something out there, maybe something you're proud of, and if it just lands with a thud, doesn't get the response you hoped for, there's that little sting, that feeling of being somehow less valued even when you rationally know it's ridiculous.
It's human.
It's really challenging to completely detach your self-perception from those online interactions sometimes, which I suppose leads us pretty naturally to consider the underlying forces driving some of these negative aspects, the business of chaos, as it were.
Exactly. That's the perfect framing. To truly understand why some of these negative trends persist, it's absolutely crucial to examine the business models that underpin these seemingly free social media platforms.
Right. We don't pay a subscription fee, usually, but in a very real sense, we are the product. Our data, our attention span, these are the actual commodities being packaged and sold to advertisers.
That's the core of it. The longer we stay active on these platforms, clicking, scrolling, engaging,
The more data they can vacuum up about our preferences, our habits, our behaviors.
and the more opportunities they have to serve us targeted advertisements. Consequently, their fundamental business model incentivizes features and algorithms that maximize user engagement and, crucially, time spent on the platform.
So keeping us scrolling, keeping us clicking, keeping us reacting, that directly translates into greater profitability for these massive companies.
Precisely.
And when we connect that back to the prevalence of, say, highly emotional or controversial content we were talking about, a slightly cynical picture starts to emerge, doesn't it?
It does. What's kind of fascinating, in a dark way, is that strong emotions, whether positive like joy or negative like outrage, tend to be much more effective at driving engagement than neutral or purely factual content.
Makes sense. People react more strongly.
Right. Therefore, algorithms might maybe inadvertently or perhaps even somewhat by design, end up amplifying content that evokes those strong reactions. Outrage, for example, can be a particularly potent driver of shares, comments, and general platform activity.
Drama sells, even online.
Pretty much. And then there's the argument, which the platforms themselves often make, that they are merely neutral conduits of information, just a platform, not a responsible publisher of the content that flows through them.
Ah, yes, the platform versus publisher debate.
It raises really significant questions about accountability, doesn't it? If their algorithms are actively shaping the information landscape users see and are potentially amplifying misinformation or harmful content simply because it drives engagement.
Can they truly claim to be neutral intermediaries with no responsibility?
It's a very thorny question.
And we can't really ignore the role of influencers within this whole ecosystem either. The system often seems to reward individuals with the largest audiences, almost regardless of the accuracy or quality of the information they might be spreading.
Yeah, that's a big factor too. We see individuals with enormous followings promoting products, lifestyles, or even, questionable ideas that might be misleading or even actively harmful.
Simply because their huge reach attracts lucrative brand deals and endorsements.
Exactly. The inherent incentives within the influencer economy don't always align neatly with the well-being or the informed understanding of their audience, sometimes quite the opposite.
Okay, so, wow. To try and bring this all together, we've really taken a deep dive today into some of the, let's say, less celebrated aspects of social media.
Hmm.
We've explored its intentionally addictive nature and the psychological hooks it uses,
Yeah.
the way it can foster those echo chambers that seem to contribute to societal fragmentation,
Yeah.
and its really significant role in the rapid, often uncontrolled dissemination of misinformation.
Definitely covered that.
We've also examined the considerable toll it can take on our mental health, from making anxiety and depression worse to facilitating cyberbullying and fueling that constant pressure for online validation.
A heavy toll, for sure.
And finally, we've tried to peek behind the curtain at the underlying business models that can, maybe directly or indirectly, end up perpetuating some of these negative consequences.
It's a complex system with powerful incentives.
But the goal here isn't really about advocating for everyone to just abandon social media entirely. That's probably unrealistic for most people anyway.
Right. It's part of modern life.
It's more about fostering a greater awareness of these hidden costs so we can maybe make more informed, more conscious choices about how we engage with these powerful platforms.
Knowledge is power in this case.
Yeah, we can be more mindful of our own usage patterns, perhaps actually setting some boundaries like time limits or phone-free zones to reclaim some of our time and attention.
Little changes can make a difference.
We can certainly commit to being more critical consumers of the information we see online, taking that crucial extra step to, verify something before we hit share.
Pause before you post or share.
And maybe most importantly, we can actively prioritize our real-world connections and relationships. Nurture those face-to-face interactions.
Absolutely. Cultivating that awareness, as you said, is the crucial first step. It empowers us to interact with social media more deliberately, hopefully in ways that better support our individual well-being, and maybe even contribute to a slightly more informed and, dare I say, connected society in the truest sense.
Well said. So as you go about your day after listening to this, maybe take a moment to consider your own relationship with social media. Reflect honestly on its overall impact on your life. The good stuff, sure, but also the negatives we've talked about. What kind of balance have you struck? Or is it maybe a balance you're still striving to achieve?
Good food for thought.
Perhaps this is a good moment to really think about the trade-offs we're making between our digital engagement and our offline well-being. And maybe a little ironically, we'd be genuinely interested to hear your thoughts on this. If you feel compelled, perhaps share some of your reflections, maybe even online.